This is In Pursuit of the Truth. Today, I'm going to tell you the story of a 74-year-old weird woman who lived an ordinary life until her death revealed shocking secrets, and whose words were rarely taken seriously. If you're ready to uncover these secrets that no one could have imagined, shall we begin? Beda, a town in Wales, was a quiet and small settlement consisting of narrow streets, stone walls, and houses with gardens. The air in this town was foggy and overcast for most of the year due to gases emitted from coal mines. 74-year-old Leanne Sabine was a different, unusual woman compared to everyone else living here. Lee, who settled here 18 years ago in 1997, had never left Beddoll since that day. Some who remembered the past claimed that she came here with her husband, but the man disappeared a few months later. Others said she had been alone from the beginning, while some alleged that she came with her lover, but they later separated. Everyone referred to her as Crazy Lee. Leanne Sabine had earned this nickname, almost deservedly, with her increasingly strange behaviors, unstable demeanor, and contradictory statements. She was known for her flashy and exaggerated outfits. She enjoyed drawing attention to herself in every environment she entered. Some mornings, she would even wake up early and start getting ready. She would open her closet and choose her most ornate dress. Then, adorned with glittering jewelry, she would shine like the sun. And of course, that stone frog figurine, she would never part with it. After hours of preparation, Lee would saunter through the streets with her stone frog figurine, never failing to greet the people she encountered. Leanne, who greatly enjoyed everyone paying attention to her, had many peculiar behaviors. One of these was that she could greet someone with a smile one day and then insult them the next. Another was that she told inconsistent stories about her past to everyone she chatted with. Most of these stories sounded too absurd to be true.
I used to be a very famous singer. So many people chased after me, but I didn't give them the time of day. I have never been married, meaning marriage is not for me.
So who was Leanne really? Born in Wales, Leanne was abandoned by her family when she was still a young child. From that day on, her life was spent shuttling between relatives' homes and foster families. Leanne grew up without experiencing any love throughout her childhood and youth. She dreamed of becoming rich and famous one day in the future, working with all her might to achieve this. Finally, she managed to acquire a respectable profession and started working as a nurse at a hospital in London at the young age of 17, where she met John Sabine. Lee, who found John to be quite intelligent and brave, didn't care that John was 11 years older than her or that he was married with children. The first years of their relationship had been quite happy. The couple, who had been married for 5 years, had 5 children during this time. From the outside, everything in their lives seemed to be going well, but in reality, nothing was as it appeared. Leanne had never planned to have 5 children at a young age, or to stay at home waiting for her husband. The deep chasm between the life she was living today and her dreams caused her to constantly feel weary, dissatisfied, and unfulfilled. Meanwhile, John's situation had started to deteriorate. Wanting to solve their financial difficulties the easy way, John had resorted to illegal means and defrauded the company he worked for. When John realized he would be caught and imprisoned, he told his wife they needed to leave England. The Sabine family had fled to New Zealand, opening a new chapter in their lives. However, things weren't going as they had hoped here either. Although John had escaped imprisonment and felt relieved, Leanne's inner conflicts weren't ending, and the voices in her head wouldn't quiet down. She knew that had to bid farewell to this life and made her choice. Lee and John had abandoned their 5 children, the oldest being 12 years old, leaving them at the doorstep of an orphanage. Leanne was finally about to achieve her dreams. She was both singing and dancing in a cabaret. Now, the next step was to become famous. But that long-awaited day never seemed to come. Realizing they wouldn't succeed in Australia either, Lee and John moved to their final destination, the town of Beddu in Wales. Lee and John were so busy with the hustle and bustle of moving to a new place that they hadn't even found time to meet their neighbors. A few months later, they had finally managed to settle in and were ready to mingle with people when John suddenly disappeared. The man had seemingly evaporated in an instant, as if he had vanished into thin air. It was as if John Sabine had never existed in this world. Most people in this town they had recently moved to haven't even noticed John's absence. This situation didn't seem to have shaken his wife much either. Thus, John was quickly forgotten without any problems arising. Meanwhile, Lee had already begun to form wrong relationships with the people who were accustomed to the town. She would often invite her neighbors over for wine, telling them about her days as a nurse or showing them the photographs on her wall, explaining that she used to be a very famous singer. Generally, everyone liked her, but she wasn't taken very seriously. In fact, Lee had started to be known as Crazy Lee due to the inconsistent memories she told around and her volatile mood. However, over the years, Leanne's inconsistent behaviors increased. With the brain tumor diagnosis she received in 2015, everything was about to become even more bizarre. She kept talking about something called a plastic skeleton. Lee, who went to a photographer to take beautiful pictures before dying, joked that she would become famous after her death, thanks to the corpse in the cabin. This chilling joke was once again attributed to her madness and not taken seriously. Leanne passed away in October 2015. Her closest friends, Ryan Lee and Michael James, were collecting a few mementos from her house while reminiscing about their memories of her. Eventually, the conversation turned to that plastic skeleton Lee couldn't stop talking about in her final days. They decided to fulfill Lee's last wish and move it to the attic. Upon this, the women went outside together and started walking towards the shed in the garden. When they reached the door of the dilapidated shack, they hesitated to enter, but eventually managed to slowly open the door and step inside. The surroundings were dark and chaotic, but they noticed something under the table on the right side, which was probably the plastic skeleton the woman had mentioned. After pulling this package, wrapped in layers of plastic, to the side, they began to remove the packaging. With each layer of packaging they opened, foul odors began to spread around. As they unwrapped the package, the smell had become unbearable. And finally, when they opened the last one, the women who were expecting to see a plastic skeleton encountered a partially decomposed corpse. Paralyzed with fear, they notified the police. As a result of the police investigations, it was discovered that this body had been virtually mummified, wrapped in more than 40 solid plastic shopping bags and felt cloths. The body belonged to a middle-aged man, about 168 centimeters tall, with hair that had started to come loose. When the autopsy was performed, it was determined that he had been struck on the head with a blunt object, and that this blow was the cause of death. All of Lee's implications that the skeleton could be real had started to fall into place. All the words that the people of Bedau had previously laughed off were now making their hair stand on end. Thus, it was confirmed that the body belonged to John Sabine. Additionally, a hair found in the layers of packaging wrapped around the body was identified as Lee's, making her prime suspect. Upon examination, it was determined that the shape of the stone frog figurine, which Leanne never parted with, matched exactly with the wound mark on John Sabine's head. Leanne brutally killed her husband, with whom she had shared the same life for years, by hitting him on the head, and moreover, she had hidden the man's lifeless body in her garden for 18 years, and she wanted to be talked about even after her death. She had never been able to shake off her obsession with fame, for which she had abandoned her children without a second thought. In the end, she managed to become famous in a way, but was it worth it?